It's another fine day at Camp Dynasty. I am Counselor Austin, joined by Counselor Collin. You know, there's been a little bit of a tone around the 2026 class as we work our way through rankings 2.0, but I said at the end of last week, this tight end class, like, is there something here? Can we get excited again? So what do you think?
Well,
Can
we
we?
we lost Dante Moore,
Well,
so
that's true. So
that
yeah,
doesn't help a lot.
the
But
hits keep coming.
yeah, exactly. We're sacrificing swaths of this 2026 class to make 2027 even better. But on the bright side, the 2026 tight end class looks pretty sick. So maybe if tight end premium people, we're feeling good. Otherwise, maybe a little bit of a footnote on a class that's going to be forgotten.
Get ready to draft tight ends earlier than you want to this year.
Yeah,
I think
man,
that's
get ready to feel comfortable taking a tight end pretty early, because
yeah.
that's where we're at.
But that's not a bad thing because we just need talent wherever we can find it in this class. I mean, like you said, Dante Moore, that's a huge hit. We just talked about this last week. Quarterbacks, he's the number 2 guy. If he's not in it, oh my God, what are we going to do? Well, it happened, and Justice Haynes is going to Georgia Tech instead of the NFL. So, I mean, it
You got to be.
really
How much money do you have to be offered to go to Georgia Tech? Like, good Lord.
it's got to be a bag,
Yeah.
but even then I'm like, are you sure you want to do that? Like, we could just go to the league, man.
I
But
guess you're gonna be a third or fourth round pick. So let me go get 1,600 yards at Georgia Tech,
I suppose that
and
this is the
let me
world
get
we live in.
$8 million.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not the worst deal in the world.
No, it's not. So, but unfortunately for us, it's a bad deal
Yeah.
because the running back class gets even lighter. However, the tight ends, the draft declarations are coming in with all of these guys in most cases. I think a lot of the names we're going to talk about today, if they are underclassmen, they have already declared for the draft. So this is a group that is not interested in NIL. They want to get to the NFL. They want to show what they got. And this is going to end up being, I think, a pretty strong top 5. We're going to keep it to a top 5 for tight ends. But in this case, I think 1 through 5, we're talking about pretty good players. So I will turn it over to you. Did
Thanks.
I do this last week?
I think I've started every time.
I started at least one.
Well, I did start last time, but I can start again. I mean, I'm not
You know
afraid.
what? No, I'm doing it.
Okay.
I'm doing it. I'll just start us off. Number 5, this is a name that is carrying over from the summer for me. He was my number 4 tight end in the summer. He's now coming in at the 5 spot, and that is Jack Endries.
He's at my 6.
6.
Yep.
Okay. And I remember you also did not have him in your top 5 in the summer. So you are a certified Endries hater.
Yeah, I have 1 spot lower than you. I'm a hater.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Jack Endries, who are you? Tight end from Texas. If you aren't familiar with the player, transferred to Texas this year from Cal. When we talked about him last in the summer, he was coming in from Cal, spent that last year there with Mendoza. He was the leading receiver of that team at over 500 yards receiving for them. Actually, over 600 yards receiving for them, 623
that is over
yards.
500.
It's true. I did not lie. I just caught it. I could juice him up a little bit more, but so he had a great season there at Cal, and that offense was, we talked about it with Mendoza and with Endries. Like, it was not a high powered offense. I mean, you were talking about the leading receiver having 623 yards, but he certainly earned it. Some notes about him, which we did cover in the summer, but it's been a while. He walked on at Cal, So that's cool. You walk on at Cal, you end up at Texas as a premier transfer, and now we're going into the NFL draft. He had uh, scholarship offers from 7 out of 8 Ivy League schools. So we, there's a little bit
Between
of
the
a
years.
brain here
Yeah.
we're talking about with Endries as
It's
well.
always what you want to start your scouting report with.
Yes, yes. The football IQ is we're thinking it's off the charts perhaps. But uh in terms of what I saw from Endries this year versus last year, I mean, coming into Texas, the stats look a lot worse. He only had 346 yards receiving this year, did have 3 touchdowns versus 2 last year. But I think when you turn on the film with him, that's not entirely representative of a player that like took a big step back. In many cases, I think he kind of stayed where he was in a lot of ways. Like I thought as a receiver, he looked fairly similar to how I remembered him from Cal. The big thing that he got better at this year was blocking. And I think that is still a work in progress. I'm not saying that he is a great blocker right now, but compared to where he was coming into the year, he got a lot better. They asked a lot of him in this Texas offense. I mean, you see him moving across the formation. He's sealing the edge, but then he's also coming back on these split zone plays or whatever. Like they were asking him basically to do a ton, and he managed that responsibility well. I would say that, overall he understood how to get to his spot, and he was not a liability when he got there. I think there's definitely room for him to improve in terms of a strength profile. You don't often see him moving guys, but he was serviceable at doing his job in that regard. And then I think as a receiver, the things that stand out, like I said, kind of a lot of the things that stood out in the summer, which is I like his athleticism. I think he can get upfield quickly, he can get up into the seam quickly. I think there's a wide catch radius here as well. The hands are generally strong. He had no drops this year, only one last year. So we're talking about, a player here over the last couple seasons that's earned quite a few targets. That's really not dropping the ball. Only 3 for 5 uncontested this year, but that's just a product of not having a ton of opportunities. And I think you do see those flashes of him being able to make tough catches and through contact and all of those things that you're looking for, especially from a tight end. Um, and then I think, well, I'll stop there.
Sure.
What do you like about Endries, if
Yeah,
anything?
I like how he operates in like the crossing game, the like play action, over routes, drag routes, that kind of thing. I think he's good like with a guy on him. Like, you don't see him getting, I wouldn't say a ton of separation unless it's through like busted coverage or zone coverage or that kind of thing when it's man to man, but he can still make those catches when he's got like a smaller player on him on his back hip, can kind of seal him off and still trap that ball. Makes catches outside of his frame pretty well. Good like adjustments, I would say, to some bad balls. He had one that I can think of against A&M where he kind of ran like up the seam, manning through a back shoulder, but it like pretty easily would have been an interception. But he made a nice like twirling, kind of falling grab outside of his frame, and it's like, hey, you're gonna get a like +1 from me for that. So I definitely think that he's a pretty talented receiver, pretty fluid. I don't like, not my favorite coming in and out of breaks, I wouldn't say, but he's a tight end, so I'm not going to like put a huge red X on that because there's not a lot of tight ends that are going to be like explosive route runners. But yeah, better blocker than he was, not a great blocker. Good vertical threat as well as a horizontal threat. Smart against zone. I wouldn't say like perfect, but definitely is finding spots and going into open space on these crossers. So also ran him on a lot of inserts where they're having him coming across on these zone runs and filling into like the A gap or the B gap, which is really in vogue in the NFL right now to have your tight ends or your receivers do that, because if you can run them on the insert in a run game, you can run them on the insert in a pass game, and then you can have him, like you see this with the Rams offense a lot. You have a motion, shoot up through the A gap, and then run a route out of that. And now you're matched up with whoever you want, and it's probably going to be a Mike linebacker, and you like that matchup a lot. So I think that he has skills to become an NFL tight end. I don't know, like he seems a little undercooked for me right now. It's the only thing that I would say.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I think he is a lot more developmental still than the guys we're talking about coming up next on this list. Like this is a pretty like where Endries sits for me is kind of like where the tier breaks. Like my top four are going to be a pretty significant bump above where Endries is right now. Because I agree with you. I think the route running in general is very much a work in progress. He is, I mean, he has athleticism and they scheme him opportunities and he's good on the crossing stuff and like all of those kind of like tight end sorts of collegiate things that we're doing here, just running drags and little flat routes and stuff, and then hitting the seam. Outside of that, I think it's pretty raw right now. Like when you're asking him to like make a break or like run a real route, it's a lot
Yeah.
sloppier. Um, and then like you said, I mean, I touched on it already too. Like he got better as a blocker. He needs to get even better as a blocker, needs to add strength.
He's
He's
at
six
weight.
four. Yeah, add weight. 6'4", 236 is what he's listed at. And I know, we've had this conversation a million times, but like it seems like 240 is kind of the new spot for these guys. So like he's not far off of that, but this is definitely a player that could benefit from like 10 extra pounds, I think. And then the number one thing, and you're talking about this every year, and we're going to talk about it with every single one of these guys on this list. You got to get better after the catch. If like Jack Endries, I like the athleticism and I like the catch point ability that he has, but when he gets the ball, I would like to see him do more with it. And I think part of that is I generally want him to be nastier.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he's a very nasty player. And I think that is something with the tight end position that we have seen for years and years. Like these guys that come in with a little bit of an edge are the guys that can come in and make an impact early. I mean, you think about a guy like Tucker Kraft kind of most recently who has this like yak skill, but it's also like a nastiness. And I think that's kind of what translates with these guys is you have to have that toughness where like if we're talking Packers tight ends, like I'm watching Endries and like I'm kind of thinking a little bit about Luke Musgrave. And like
I
he's
think
not as
that's
he's not even as athletic as Musgrave was, but like that's kind of the demeanor that he has on the field. And I'd like to see him get a little, dial that up a little bit.
I think that's very fair. I think like you see a guy that can make all these spectacular catches, but would be like a flex slot tight end, and you just don't want to live in that world and be like Mike Gesicki in 2026 when like the run game is back and the play action is back. Like we're not splitting out five wide very often in 2026 where we're playing, 21 and we're playing a lot of or 12 and personnel, and we're sitting here and we're running the ball and we're playing play action and we're having a blocking tight end and then we're having a guy that can do both. And if you're only a receiver, it's going to be hard for you to see the field as often. So gotta buckle down on the O-line.
All right. Your number 5.
Justin Joly.
My number 6.
Yeah. Out of NC State. So he is it's kind of honestly a similar profile, except he is a better blocker, I would say, and a worse receiver. I think you take some attributes out of the like fluidity box and you put it into the blocking box, and you kind of enter a similar conversation. Had 468 yards this year, 7 touchdowns, 47 catches. He was a pretty solid receiver for NC State. Had a couple pretty nice games, but he's a good athlete. He's a pretty like a good blocker. Where I was like, oh, I like wanted to move him up a little more just because I liked how good he was as a blocker. They used him a lot on those like screen passes where they would flex him out in front of a bubble screen and just let him go to work, or they'd have him sealing an edge. I mean, they were running behind him a lot, and he was holding his own. It's a bigger player. He's 6'3", 263. So you just said 240 is probably that benchmark for tight ends. He's a heavier tight end. He is moving his weight around, and it shows, and that's, I think, pretty valuable. But it doesn't really show after the catch as much, which is the thing that like stood out to me. I wanted him to kind of be a tank a little bit after the catch and be bowling people over, but he didn't do it as much as I wanted to. Falls forward a lot after the catch, but isn't like bowling over corners, which is like, come on, like I want to see you truck somebody and move some people. You look like you have something to say.
So it's just funny because Joly has like, I feel like from where he was 2 years ago to where he is today, you're almost talking about a different player.
Yeah.
And like, this is something that we talked about in the summer with him. Like, he was listed 250 last year.
Yeah.
And I, coming into the year, was like, I don't think he was 250. Like, I don't think he was that big. And now he's listed at 260. And I'm like, what is happening here? Like, and then, you know, he like at UConn 2 years ago, he was like 235.
Yeah.
You know, it's like this guy has put on a lot of mass. I don't know what it actually is gonna like. I don't know if it's 263, like it says here, or what it's gonna look like, but it's very obvious that he's put on a considerable amount of weight, even from last year. He
Yeah.
looks bigger than just a year ago.
Yeah. And
And
I think he lost some of
yes,
the athleticism, like the wiggle, the juice that he had on those earlier years. You can see in like the missed tackles force numbers if you look year by year, where in 2022 and 2023 at UConn it was 10 and 18 his sophomore year. And then the last 2 years at NC State, I think you get the message like, hey, you're going to be blocking a little more. We need you to put on some weight. We need you to get stronger. Comes on, gets a little heavier. 10 missed tackles for 6 this year. So this was the lowest he's had on a season, and pretty much the same amount of production. So he's still getting, you know, he had 56 catches, which was a career high as sophomore year, which is that year that you're talking about where it's like, hey, man, he looks like a freak athlete. He's moving. He's making people miss. He's a really good receiver. And now I think he's a more well-rounded player, but he's like a less sexy player where it's like, I don't know if I'm like, I'm not jumping all over the like Joly train of like, I want to draft this guy in the like late second, early third of my Dynasty rookie draft. But like, if you're seeing him kind of fall in the draft a little bit and you got a later pick, I think you're like, hey, this guy could find a roster spot because he can block his ass off and he's still got the athleticism, even if it's not as pronounced as it was when he was an underclassman.
yeah, no, I mean, I still like him a lot. Like he's number 6 for me, was number 5 for me in the summer. The grade did climb a little bit though, even though he fell a spot. And I do think that part of it is what he has done over the last 2 years. I think it's exactly what you're saying, which is that he got himself prepared to be an NFL tight end. And through that process, with adding weight and adding strength and becoming a legitimate blocker, even though, I mean, he's 6'3", like we don't have the length that, you know, we're looking at with some of these other guys.
Sorry.
but but he certainly is holding his own as a blocker, and more so than that in many cases. But I think within that is the conversation that you just outlined, which is 2 years ago at UConn, this was one of the premier yak threats in college football, period. I mean, he was up there with Brock Bowers in terms of yards after the catch as a tight end. And so, like, to go from that to where he was this year is pretty shocking. I mean, we're talking about only 3.6 yards after catch per reception. Prior to this year, the lowest that he had was 5.9, and that was last season. So it's a very stark drop off in terms of just the raw yak numbers and then the missed tackles force numbers that you referenced. I mean, it is pretty shocking to see like how he has developed into a completely different player than what I expected to see from him, come, by the end of this year. But what I'll say is this: you still see some flashes of that player like that. It's not gone. There are certainly times where like he will make guys miss with elusiveness in the open field. And his catch radius and his catch point ability, I think, is very, very good. I mean, and the numbers back that up. This is a career 66% contested catch rate player, 35 for 53 over his career. He was 9 of 15 this year. That was 60%. Only one drop this year. That was 2%. He has great hands. And you see him again, even as a player here that's 6'3, little bit of a stockier frame. You see him make these plays on the ball. And so if he lost a little bit of yak ability, he didn't lose anything at the catch point and he became a better blocker. So in a lot of ways, I think he kind of improved his overall profile, because if he hadn't added the weight that he did and improved his blocking, we'd be talking about him as a tweener. We'd be talking about him as a, what are you at the NFL level? And I think he has kind of erased some of that.
Yeah, I would agree. I think like you, I'd say pretty comfortably he was the best blocking tight end of this group, because we're talking about players that are going to be good receivers in the NFL. Like we're talking about guys that are going to be fantasy relevant, and I felt at least that like I would trust this guy, pretty close to day one. It's hard to trust a tight end day one in the NFL, but I think he was the best blocker that I watched. And so you take that and you're like, I can forgive you being, a little slower in and out of your breaks. I think he's really good to run the seam. He still runs a pretty good route. I think he just needs to transition into a power player instead of an elusiveness player after the catch. I think that's because like you transition the rest of your game into like a strength player, but when you catch the ball, you still feel like you're 230 pounds, and it's like,
Yeah.
like I get it. I used to be 30 pounds lighter too, but I think you got to put your shoulder down and bury somebody every once in a while.
The other thing I'll note with him, good against zone. He's got a lot of work to do against man coverage. I thought he was defenders were very sticky to him in man coverage. And I will say he uses his hands fairly well at the top of his routes. Like when he has to break, he's not really able to do it with like footwork or, burst or anything like that. But like there were a few times where he was like throwing hands, which maybe that's legal and maybe it's not in some cases, but it was kind of like violent. It was almost like an offensive, like it's almost like he's blocking, but
Yeah.
he's throwing hands at the coverage player and like they're flying back like, whoa, like what the hell? Just punch me 15 yards down the field. But
If they're not going to call it, yeah, I think Brock Bowers said it in an interview with Steve Smith. He was like, I mean, hey, if they're going to, make contact with me, I'm going to make it back harder.
there it is.
There you go.
All right. So number 4 for me, I got to tell you something. This is the 4th installment of Rankings 2.0. I can't say that I've had a huge surprise on film up until this point.
Okay.
Like I've had players that like pleasantly surprised me, but like everybody's kind of been in the ballpark that either I had them in the summer or kind of imagined that they would be in based off of following the season. This was the first player this year that I watched and was like, holy shit, this is not what I was expecting. He's way better than I was expecting. It's Eli Raridon
Okay.
from Notre Dame.
Okay. I didn't have a chance to watch Eli Raridon, so I want to hear this. I'm
So there
excited.
you go. So Raridon is a player that we have talked about before because he was on the Feldman's Freaks list. And we talked about him on that episode as a player that has an extensive injury history. Had he's a 4-star, recruit. I think he was the number 2 tight end in his recruiting class. He's going to Notre Dame. All the writing is on the wall for this to be the next, Notre Dame tight end that ends up in, the top of the draft and all of that. And he tears his ACL not once, but twice in the same knee.
Always
And
good.
and that's going to come up, in terms of what's going to happen with him at the NFL when we get to the NFL draft. But I think last season, like he was back, but he didn't really play. Like he wasn't involved very much in the offense. He only had 11 catches for 90 yards last season. This was the first year where it was like, it's either going to happen or it's not. Like he's either going to be the player he was supposed to be or he's not. We're 2 years removed from the knee injury. What is this going to look like? And overall, this was a very up and down season for him. He finished the year with 32 catches, 482 yards, no touchdowns. You look at his game by game, and it's like 85 yards, 0 yards, 60 yards, 8 yards, 109 yards, 0 yards. Like very bumpy season. And there's games where he's only playing like a dozen snaps on like running routes. And there's games where he's out there for 30. So I don't know. Maybe it's management coming off the injury. Maybe he's getting banged up in these games and it's like not enough to be reported on or something. Like I don't know what it was, but I have to tell you, the games that I watched, he was very impressive. I mean, first and foremost, he's 6'7", 252.
Sorry.
It's dead. It's
No.
we
It's over.
the adults killed it,
You're
but
right.
that's okay. But so like we're talking about Joly 6'3" and like Endries 6'4", 235. Like here's 6'7", 250. And it's like you know it because it's obvious that he's massive, but you wouldn't really know it based off of how he moves. I mean, 2 ACL tears could have fooled me because he's running like, I mean, I'll say this, maybe I can't say this because number 1 exists, but outside of number 1, maybe the purest like athlete of this group, like just in terms of fluidity at his size, it's unbelievable how well he moves. And I saw, instances where like he'll catch the ball over the middle of the field on like a intermediate crossing route and he like transitions into a yak mode in between defenders, like as he's catching the ball. So like you're talking about, I mean, we got like, I don't know, maybe he's coming on your list yet, but like we got a 6'7" player in Tanner Koziol in this class. and you watch how he moves versus how Raridon's moving, and it's like there's no way that these are the same. Like this is the same size player. So I thought, we have some yak ability here. The catch point I thought looked very good. Saw him making tough catches over the middle of the field and in the seam. He had 2 drops this year. Both of them came in week 1 and then didn't have a drop the rest of the season. And yeah, he's raw as a route runner. Like, they're not asking him to do a lot. But I think what I saw this year was enough for me to be like, this is a player that just hasn't played a lot of football at the collegiate level because of injury. And for him to look like this, it's exciting. And I just couldn't really ignore what I was seeing from this player.
I'll have to. He'll be on my watch list for when we get later in the season. We're doing mock drafts and top 48 and all that stuff. Because a fluid 6'7" player that's out of Notre Dame. That we'll see how far he slides down the NFL draft board because of the knee injuries. But maybe you get yourself a deal if he's going to be falling down the NFL draft board.
I am prepared to stand on the table this year. Like, I wanted a player like this to emerge, and it took a little while, but it happened. Like, I'm ready to plant the flag and die for Raridon in this.
I love it.
Also, I mean, as a blocker, he's good. Like, he's not great. Like,
good
but
enough.
He's good. Like, at 6'7", I'm gonna again.
I'm sorry, I can't.
I know. I'll keep contrasting him with Koziol. Like, Koziol is so high and gets very off balance so easily as a blocker, and you don't really see that showing up. Like, Raridon is not suffering from being too high because of his height in those situations. I think there is that, you can add a little bit of strength here potentially. Like, let's move guys a little bit more, like some of the guys we have coming up here. But I think for where he's at and what he is, it's very serviceable. I think the biggest weakness for him is just the medicals, because there's no way that, like, I doubt the NFL is gonna, draft him where I think he should be drafted simply based off of his medicals. And then also, being a little bit raw, because he's really only had 1 full season of action where he wasn't being asked to do like a ton. So, yeah, those are the 2 things. But outside of that, I really, really liked what I saw.
All right. I like it.
All right. So number 4 for you
is Michael Trigg.
Okay.
Is he the one that's out for you?
He is not in my 5.
Okay.
And partially because I couldn't find much on him right now.
Okay. So Michael Trigg, Baylor, tight end, number 1, 6'4", 240, had 700 yards receiving this year, 6 touchdowns. I'll preface this entire thing by saying, not good against man. I'll put that out there as my disclaimer. I know if you're typing right now, like, Michael Trigg can't get open against my grandma, you might be right. But he's a damn good athlete, and he's got some of the best hands in the class. Had, like, maybe the best catch. Like, there were some crazy catches this year, but had one of the best catches I've ever seen against Kansas State, where he had that one-handed grab, blanketed in man coverage, I will say. As are a lot of his highlight catches, because a lot of the time when they're playing man against him, he's blanketed. But hear me out. Solid blocker, great athlete, good hands. Let's get him into an offense where we're scheming up stuff against zone and watch him have 100 yards a game, because there are some moments where after the catch he's really good. He transitions from a receiver to a runner pretty seamlessly. He has extremely strong hands. I a bad habit, but like does the thing where you like catch it and you just kind of palm it while you're running, and like, yeah, that's a no. Hold it high and tight, whatever. It looks sick. Okay, he's wearing number 1. He's the coolest guy on the field. He looks awesome doing it. He's stiff arming you with the other hand, keeping it's like he's playing keep away from a little brother, but has like it can jump really high, has big hands, really good athlete, can test out of the world at the combine. 5th year senior, so like maybe you take him a tick down a little bit. I don't care for a tight end because they take a while to bake anyway. You talk about like guys that are coming in and takes them 2 to 3 years until they really pop anyway. I would rather have a guy coming older than, a junior, and he's going to need 3 years anyway. Like we just saw Kyle Pitts have a good year for the first time. I mean, he had 1,000 years as a rookie, but 1,000 yards as a rookie.
People forget that.
People do forget that, but it feels like now, like, oh hey, the actual Kyle Pitts has been reborn, and he was like the chosen one. So maybe we sit here and we say, hey, 5th year senior isn't too bad because you've had some time to develop and been to 3 schools. That's common now, but I just take a look at Michael Trigg and I'm like, you kind of check a lot of my boxes besides, like, you check all of the boxes outside of get open against man coverage. And, like, I can forgive that out of a tight end because I kind of say this, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but, like, year after year, I'm like, how often are you telling your tight end in the NFL, hey, go win against a DB? Like, unless you're McBride or Kelsey or Kittle or, one of these top guys, that's just not the reality of what you're asked to do in the league. So you're going to be doing a lot of crossing routes, a lot of over routes, a lot of what we were talking about with Endries just a little bit ago, where we were like, hey, he's really good at all this stuff. And I think Trigg just was the best receiver on this Baylor team. And so they're like, hey, man, get out in the slot and go run some routes and beat some guys. And it's like not really his forte. So get this guy into position to succeed, get him into positions where he'll be more comfortable, and then we can work on, the man beaters later.
Yeah, I won't add a ton because I haven't watched any all 22 for Trigg because I couldn't find any. But I will say this, a few things. We talked about him this season, obviously, because he was having a great year. The catches, I mean, the Kansas State one, I know exactly what you're talking about, even though I haven't seen it in like 2 months because it was that good. And that wasn't the only great catch he made this year. He made many. Things I will say about Trigg, he is going to be another kind of enigma because I think there are some potential character red flags for him that may or may not affect him on NFL draft day. This was a player that was mysteriously dismissed from Ole Miss last year and then transferred to Baylor. And if I remember correctly, that wasn't really the first incident with Trigg over his 5 years. So there's a little bit of that with him, but obviously we can only evaluate what is on the field because we don't really know outside of that. But just something to keep in mind. If he goes later on NFL draft weekend, then maybe you expect him to because he's, a great receiver. That could be a factor.
There we go.
All right. So now we're in the top 3. And I don't know about you. I like Raridon enough that like I kind of have him clumped in with these guys. But I also think these 3 guys, if we're talking about the same players, which I think we are very, very good. Like we're talking about like flirting with the first round and a first rounder, I think. So number 3 for me, a little bit of a drum roll on this because I honestly kind of don't even know who I want to pick right now. I told myself I was going to go gut because I couldn't make up my mind. And I'm going to go with Max Klare.
Okay. I have Eli Stowers here.
Yeah. And I thought about that a lot. And we'll talk about that whole conversation, but Klare.
Would it surprise you to hear that I don't have Max Klare in my top 5?
Wait, you don't have Klare in the top 5?
No.
So he's not number 2.
No.
Okay.
I feel like okay, we'll get there.
All right. Well, no, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Been a while since this has happened.
Yeah, because here I am like a doofus being like, I think our top 3s are going to be the same, but never mind.
That's all right. Let's go.
Okay. So why did I preface it that way? Because I have a high second round grade on Klare. And I think he is in this draft class, the state of it. I don't think it's out of the question that he goes in the first round, because I think in the summer, what there was to love about Klare was his ability as an athlete and how that translated into being able to run routes. He just runs routes differently than most tight ends can. I remember watching him in the summer and having some flashbacks to Laporta, where it's like you're just doing things that like other guys aren't doing as a route runner. Like we're talking about these simplified route trees and limited route trees, and you have Klare who will go up against man coverage and win straight up as a route runner, and will run whip routes as a tight end and win those easily and pull off ridiculous like plays after the catch because of his athleticism. So I think like first and foremost, when I'm looking at this player as an athlete, it's like, yeah, you have it. Like you have the secret stuff that I'm looking for with a tight end. In the summer, what I was very, very critical of him for was his ability as a blocker. And why I considered putting him at number 2 was he got a lot better as a blocker this year. Like he went from being consistently out of position and off balance to moving guys, burying guys, finishing plays over the sideline. I mean, like he like flipped a gear this year and just decided like he was going to be like one of these kind of nasty blockers at tight end. And like, was it perfect all the time? No. But to see that much development from where he was to where he is now is crazy. And I think it just goes to show that that development can continue for him at the next level. So when you put all that together, his ability as a route runner, his athleticism, and then to see that huge jump that he took as a blocker, I think that's how I end up kind of where I got with him and why I think he is kind of one of the premier talents at tight end in this class. But I'm really curious to hear where you ended up with him.
Yeah, so watching Max Klare, I felt like he was a pretty similar player outside of the blocking that he was in the summer. And I was like, a fine player. Wasn't my favorite after the catch, which was like is something that I decided to hone in on this year was like, this is what I like. This is what works. This is what I'm gonna grade on a curve. I'm gonna say, hey, if we're gonna do this, how I believe it should be done is we're gonna look at how these guys are after the catch. And I was like, Klare's pretty fine. We're and maybe I am knocking him points for volume where I shouldn't be, because he was, the third, fourth option in this offense when you're looking at, how loaded this receiver room was. And we're going to have one of these guys in the class in Tate. And, obviously Jeremiah Smith is in this. And there's other guys that are also really talented in the wide receiver room that are going to get the ball in addition to Max Klare. Klare, I think, is a good receiver. I think he's a fluid athlete. I think he's a good route runner. I think he's a better blocker than he was. But I didn't see like marked improvement from my grade in the summer to now. And there's a few guys that I feel like jumped him. The guys on this list, I feel like jumped him in terms of, hey, what kind of upside do I see with these players now? Could I be like, hey, maybe I'm just bored with Max Klare? Like, that absolutely could be true, because, you have the 6'5", 245, kind of little good all-purpose, good at a little bit of everything tight end from Ohio State right in front of you. Why are you letting it go? But I just, like, I wasn't wowed, I guess, by Max Klare.
That's fair. And I know that you weigh yards after the catch so much. You just said it. And that's the number one thing for him, where it's like he makes plays after the catch sometimes, but it is not a consistent part of his game. He is not one of these guys that is consistently like shedding tacklers. Like, he's not playing nasty in the open field. Like, there was the one game where I think we gave him a badge for it, but like he gets hit and fumbles, like, and so it's like there's a little bit of that where it's like, not, what are you doing for me after you've made a play? And then in this case, we're talking about a player, like you said, that doesn't have necessarily this elite productive season behind him. And he took a step back in the production numbers and stuff. And the route tree, like, yes, he can run. Like, I don't doubt him as a route runner at all. However, what they were asking him to do was not very developed. And I think part of that is where he's playing. Like, there's just no way around it that when you're playing with a generational wide receiver prospect and a potential top 10 NFL draft pick that's behind him, even, then Klare is going to suffer from that. Whereas on Purdue, you're the best player on the field on the offensive side every time. So you're going to end up having the 600 yards that he had last year, 684, and versus 448 this year. So I get it. I get the reservations. And I will say this, the reason why I ultimately do give him this number 3 spot instead of bumping him is because there is a little bit of that like projection with him. It's a little bit of a projection based evaluation where it's like, I saw steps taken this year, which is encouraging, but he needs to continue to develop in pretty much all areas. Like, he's not a player that I can see getting on the field early next year and being an instant impact player. And I can see that with the next 2 guys. So there's, take that for what you will, but I completely see where you're coming from with Klare.
So Eli Stowers.
So Eli Stowers, who is my number 2.
Okay.
Just to be clear.
So Stowers had a really nice season. We talked about him. I think do we both have him as tight end 1 in the summer? Yep. Had a step up season from last year, had in 2024, 50 catches, 644 yards, 5 touchdowns, bumped that up to 62 catches, 769 yards, 4 touchdowns, and looked good doing it. I mean, this is the player that moved from quarterback to tight end after, his freshman year, and then became a tight end at New Mexico State. His, I guess, sophomore, there's like a gap between 2021 and 2023. Do we know what happened there? Do you have the background? It's okay if you don't.
Let's see what happened. 2021, 2023. I think he was just a quarterback that year.
I think he might have just been a quarterback that year too.
And he didn't play at all.
Yeah. So where his last 3 years has improved every year, and he is still technically, I'd say he's pretty comfortable playing tight end now. You can kind of tell last year that he was still getting used to being a full-time, tight end receiver. He put on some weight going into this year and looks the part, where he is running very smoothly, very fluidly, catching the ball, turning into a runner after the catch, breaking tackles, going outside of his frame, making catches. I think he could improve as a route runner, but so could every tight end. I don't think that's a huge knock on him. I think he could very easily be, an early second-round pick in the NFL draft. I think he could be a late first-round pick if you really wanted to be bold. But I just feel like a nice middle-of-the-field, safe target, smart player against zone, a decent player against man. I don't think it's, anything to write home about, but I think Stowers is a damn good tight end, and I think I feel pretty good. That's why I was like, this class, really good, because, I feel great about Stowers. He was my number one before, and he, was probably better than I anticipated him being, and he still ends up being in my 3 spot.
I am just so curious.
I feel like you could figure out who it is.
I'm trying. I'm like a player that passed Stowers but isn't on my list.
Yeah.
I have a guess. We're
Okay.
gonna find out if I'm right. But Stowers, man, he's just good. And I am not going to overthink it, because there's a million, well, maybe not a million. There's a few things that led me to consider, like, maybe Klare jumps him, and maybe what do I think about the next guys, like, because in terms of what does he look like at the NFL, I think it's a harder question to answer than some of these guys, but at the same time, he just is such a good receiver that I just don't care. Like, I'm not going to overthink it. Like, yeah, he's playing in the slot a ton, and they're not asking him to be a blocker in many cases. Like, he's not really playing a traditional tight end role in this offense. And whatever. I mean, I don't know. I
also don't think Pavia is very good. I'll say that.
Well, that's yeah. We didn't talk about him last week, but I did.
Yeah.
So
doesn't hit that back foot and rip it to Stowers. I'll say that.
But yeah, so I mean, it's a player that, and you touched on this at the beginning of the show, which is like the NFL kind of evolving, and this tight end position where these guys that lived out in the slot were kind of trendy for a little while, and then very quickly kind of phased out of the modern game. And now you have these situations where it's like, I don't really know what to do with this guy. But I just think in Stowers' case, like, when you have a player that's as good as he is as a receiver, meaning great at finding space against zone, serviceable against man coverage. I mean, it's certainly not pretty in all cases, but and then his hands are interesting, because I would say of these players, like the ones that we're talking about, maybe he's kind of like in the bottom part of the class in terms of just his hands in general. But man, he makes those catches that just make you want to stand up and beat your chest and just scream.
Yeah.
Cause it's like you're running across the middle of the field and you just got annihilated. And how did you hang on to that? Or you just caught that with a defender's hands literally punching your arm as you're grabbing it, and somehow you held on to that. And like, he just makes those tough contested plays that, we like tight ends need to make at the NFL level. And I think he does it consistently enough that I'm willing to say this is okay.
Yeah.
Like his percentages are not ideal. Like he's 41% career. This was 41% this year in contested situations, but like I trust him to make plays in the dirty areas of the field. I think he's a very tough player.
Yeah.
And I think
yeah, very tough. I think he's like you said, a good enough route runner where you can like have him run that, hard quick out on like third and short and get open. And it's like that's all you really need.
and also I love how he runs the seam.
Mm-hmm.
Like very like his pacing on seam routes is awesome. Like he really knows how to kind of throttle down at the perfect time to sit right in that window, and Pavia will just rip it to him every time. So I just think when we're talking receiving ability, he's one of the best there is. And he's put it all on film and he's put it all on the stat sheet. And there's really no questions there. The questions will be, how does he fit into a modern NFL offense? Is an NFL team comfortable with a player that's not playing on the line of scrimmage often and that needs development as a blocker as a result of that? And what is that going to look like? So he's a bit of a wild card, but I just I don't want to drop him and then all of a sudden it's like, yeah, we found a way to use him because he's just that damn good.
I like it.
All right. So the moment of truth, your number 2.
Kenyon Sadiq. No, I'm just kidding. Terrance Carter.
Oh, okay, that was my guess, by the way.
So Terrance Carter, tight end out of Texas Tech, 6'2", 245, had 55 catches, 624 yards, 5 touchdowns this year. That's after being at Lafayette last year and having a pretty similar season, 700 yards, 4 touchdowns. But probably one of the more complete tight ends that I watched. A good blocker for being a little bit smaller. I mean, he's 6'2" is short. I agree, and like you don't really want your tight end to be short, but I also like don't really care that much when you're utilized the way that he's utilized. And yes, you want him to be be able to get over linebackers and under safeties and be able to catch those. If your quarterback doesn't have perfect touch, you want him to be able to go up and get those things. But in all of the other functions in like NFL offenses, I feel like Terrance Carter fits like a glove. I think he's a good enough blocker where you can feel comfortable. And he's running, I kind of talked about with Endries, where he's running these like inserts and blocking really well in these inserts. And they actually are running these kind of plays where they're having him run routes out of those inside zone inserts. And so you kind of get a little bit of a appetizer of like, hey, he can do this, man. Like you can see how he would work in an NFL offense already, and then runs that, which is a play run in the NFL all the time, where he's kind of, it's like a tight slot where he's off the line, offset on the tackle, coming across the line of scrimmage, and they'll have him blocking on inside zone a lot of those times, kicking out the D end. And then they'll run him on a bootleg, and he'll just be wide open. You see that in all of these wide zone offenses in the NFL. So I'm watching this, and I'm like, get him in every coordinator in 2026 is related to Shanahan somehow and is going to run these kind of offenses. So why can't we get Terrance Carter in one of these offenses where he's a serviceable blocker and then in like a menace after the catch? And he has a good catch radius for being the height that he is. He'll go up and get it. He's made some pretty spectacular catches. So I am all in. I did flirt with putting him at number one, but I couldn't justify it. But I am like I was really pleasantly surprised with Terrance Carter.
So you got a flag planter too
I do.
out of this group.
Yes. I would die for Terrance Carter.
All right. Well, based on what you just said, my takeaway is that I need to go watch more of Carter because what I watched, I thought he was getting overpowered as a blocker way too often. And I was attributing it to his size and his lack of length. So,
or maybe I need to watch more.
well, I don't know.
Right.
One of us is, maybe we're both right in our own ways. Maybe there's certain situations, but like for me, there was a lot of instances where like he was kind of lowering the shoulder at a guy versus blocking them. And in some of those cases, he was like getting off balance, falling over. I think when, if he's matched up, God forbid, against like a defensive lineman, it's not a great time, of course, but like even against linebackers and things like that, I still thought there were enough instances where it was like not ideal, not what I would hope for. And I thought he looked small also.
He
Like
does look small.
You kind of see him like he's listed 245. I know it's sometimes hard to tell, and like they're wearing black jerseys and whatever. What is that, a slimming color?
Yeah.
I don't like, but there, I mean, he'll be lined up in the slot, and I'm like, that's a wide receiver. Like, you are just a big wide receiver right now.
He looks small and white too, by the way.
So that was something that I like, that really pushed him down the board, because I was looking at him from the lens of like, I already have like these questions about Stowers and how he lines up. I'm really questioning his fit, but I'm really interested by how you painted the picture there with kind of his role and how he was being used. And maybe there are reps of him as a blocker that I need to go back and find, because as a receiver, absolutely. I mean, he is amazing. And I think probably even underrated in this class, because and I think part of that is just because of his size, where somebody sees 6'2" and they're like, unserious tight end. And I'm like, in my mind, I was like, I think he's a day 3 player because of his size and because of his ability as a blocker. But that being said, I'm taking him higher on day 3 simply for the fact that like there really are not players that move like him in this class. Like, to be quite honest with you, I don't think a tight end, and I'm ignoring size, like we're just going to pull all that out of it, the pound for pound, whatever, just purely how do you move? For me, I think only number 1 moves better.
Yeah,
I think
that's
he
fair.
is so good. And after the catch, I mean, this is one of these players that has been a menace after the catch. He was one of the top transfer targets this year as a tight end because of that season with the Raging Cajuns, 18 missed tackles forced. Actually improved on that this year with 23. I mean, he is a real nightmare yak player. And
So
he has speed also, legitimate speed.
My question is like, if he's a legitimate 245er, does that like change how you feel at all because of like how he moves and his speed, and or are you sitting there like, well, he still can't block and he's 245 pounds?
I think if he measures in at 245, that would slightly alter my evaluation of him. I do think the lack of length is still something that limits him as a blocker and limits his role at the next level. Like, he would be, for me, like he probably will always be one of these players that I look at as a little too gadgety. just because I think you're going to have to line him up as an H-back, or you're going to have to line him up in the slot, or you're just going to have to design a play for him. Whereas, we're not having that conversation with a lot of these guys. But at the same time, I think there is enough here with him as from his receiving skill set that, like, even in that sort of limited role, I think he has a lot of value. And I think he adds a lot of value to an NFL team. So that's where I was coming from, where I'm looking at him more of like a tight end 2-3 that's getting kind of like put in certain situations. But I don't know. I have to go back now because this is a ringing endorsement from you.
That's all right, and I think like he fits in a certain role, but I just think the role is abundant enough in the league where I feel comfortable saying like he'll find his way onto a roster and be able to fill that role. And so, yeah, the question like, could he be a receiver? No, I don't think that's the thing.
No.
So if you're thinking that in the back of your head, like, what if he trimmed down a little bit and he's a tight end, but he very well like could go down a path of like he weighs in 233 at the combine and he's 6'1 3/4, and it's like, oh, maybe not,
Yeah, I just don't want him to be a Jaheim Bell.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, 100%.
I just don't want that to be what he ends up being, but we'll see.
We'll see.
Maybe he tests out of this world, which I think is possible because there were plays where I was like, oh my God, rewind that and be like, what the hell just happened?
Do you want to know who will test out of this world?
Yeah. Number 1, baby. And I have to say this. I went into this one a little bit skeptical because I think every single time that you hear Kenyon Sadiq's name, if you're scrolling Twitter, he just declared for the draft. So this was coming up when that happened. He is referred to as potential top 10 pick Kenyon Sadiq. That is the new, like, every time we say his name, it has to be followed by that little clause. And for me, like, I view the top 10 as like kind of holy grail for tight ends. And when Brock Bowers doesn't even go in the top 10, that's when I'm like, okay, what are we doing here? And I got talked off a little bit of a ledge. I think it was literally today that I saw a tweet from Dane Brugler that was like, yeah, Bowers didn't go in the top 10, but also that class was way better. And I'm like, that's fair. But I still think that there was a little bit of a like, he's better than he is happening. And then I watched him and I was like, oh, wait, never mind.
The people might have it right.
To be clear, I still don't think he's a top 10 talent at tight end, but he is a no doubt first round talent. And which is what I was coming in with, the kind of thinking like, is he
Right.
really? He definitely is.
Yeah.
And I think in this kind of a draft class, you can see a world where he gets drafted at a shockingly high spot.
Yeah, there are few blue chip guys in this class, and that's like the tag that GMs will put on players that you're like, we got, I don't know all the rankings of the guys, but I know blue is the highest, and it's reserved for very few players, and I think Kenyon Sadiq is one of those players, and it's because he does everything you need a tight end to do, and he does it all really well. Talk about like an insane athlete. Like, he is getting in and out of his breaks in a hurry. He is like incredibly fast for a guy at his position. He's 6'3", 245. So you could say he's small, like we talked about with Michael Trigg a little bit. But he I mean, he makes up for it by being incredibly strong at the contact point with as a receiver and as a blocker. He meets guys and he stonewalls them and he can move them backward, runs the seam, finds space better than anybody else in this class. I mean that seam route. Talk about like a fearless player going up and getting the ball like with defenders around him. Just has no care in the world. He's like, I'm getting the ball. Whatever happens to me and my body, my family can worry about later because I'm gonna come down with this thing and get a 44-yard gain or whatever. But there's a few instances of that of like I'm gonna get to the inside of this guy even though he's playing inside leverage. I'm gonna give him a little move. I'm gonna get inside of him and I'm gonna give Dante Moore a little bit of space and he's gonna find it and I'm gonna go grab it. And then every once in a while we'll just make one of those like sit up or get up out of your chair plays of, oh my God, how did he get out of that bind? Where he's like got a guy bearing down on him, got a guy wrapping him up and, kind of pop out of it and get, 8 more yards. And it's just things that a tight end probably shouldn't be doing, shouldn't be making look that easy. Turns into a running back after the catch. So I was having a blast watching Kenyon Sadiq film.
Yeah, his build is interesting. Like 6'3", 245. Like he is a stocky player, and it's a very non-traditional sort of thing, which is another reason why I was kind of skeptical about him. I mean, like, and I'm saying this as somebody who had him as my number 3 tight end coming into this season. And a lot of that was projection based because like his role last year was just so small behind Terrance Ferguson. But like even then, they were getting him touches with an NFL, second round NFL tight end in the fold there. So it tells you what they thought about him even last year. And like part of me was hoping that he had a bigger year this year, like statistically, like it wasn't bad at all. 51, 568 touchdowns. Very good season for a college tight end. But like when Evan Stewart got hurt, and it was like, I think this could be a crazier. Like I think this could be like one of those 800-yard seasons for him. And it wasn't entirely consistent, but when you put on what it actually looked like, yeah, it was a great year. And he showed a lot of development from last year, specifically in terms of the routes that he was running, because like last year was a lot of the just like get him out in the flat, run a tight end screen, run a like motion wheel route for him. And this year there was a little bit more on his plate. Like he was running slant routes out of the slot that I was like, oh my God. Like the footwork, the accelerate, like the burst out of the break and all of like, I was like, God damn, like that is legitimate right there. And you don't see like most of these other guys running that route at all. Like it's so to see him doing that and consider the fact also that he is 21 years old. This is easily the youngest guy. Well, I guess Joly is 21 as well. But, compared to these other players where it's 22, 23, he will be newly 21 right before the draft. So, like, where he's at already versus these other guys, and he's younger than pretty much all. I mean, he is younger than all of these guys. It's really exciting. I mean, the athleticism speaks for itself. The vertical at the combine is going to be unbelievable. Like those leaping catches this year, like he's floating at 245. He's just floating and coming down with it. And like you said, like, I don't care what happens to me. And he's hitting the turf hard and holding on to the ball and
then getting scoring.
Yeah.
That's my favorite part is like you see these guys and they're a little bit fragile and go up and make this sick. You go to, as a Packer fan, Luke Musgrave, where like you go up and you make this sick catch and you're like down, and then you don't play for the next like 2 drives, and it's like, no, he was fine. He just got the wind knocked out of him. So you always love to see a guy that's gonna like put his body on the line and then actually be like, yeah, I'm just gonna pop right back up.
Yeah, 7 for 12 on contested catches this year, and a lot of those 7 were those crazy leaping grabs that he made. 8 missed tackles forced. He had 10 last year on way less opportunities, like half his opportunities. So I did think the yards after the catch, like what he put on film this year, wasn't quite as impressive as it was last year. But like that's not to say that it wasn't good or that we can't expect it to get better, because like you still saw the hurdles and like the crazy angle breaking speed that he puts on display, and like they're running these screens for him. And like there was one where it's like he puts a move on the corner and the corner makes an unbelievable tackle that probably like saves a 30 plus yard like yak play from Sadiq. So like there's a little bit of that too. But I think overall it's just like he got so much better this year versus last year, and he's still like clearly in development. Like he's a very young player. He's still like getting experience. Like he's not a very experienced player, and he's already easily the best tight end in this class for me. Like he graded out easily number one for me in this class as an easy first round NFL grade.
Yeah, I'd say the same for me. I like I said, I wanted to like be contrarian and have a different number one, but then you watch them and it's like that kind of be irresponsible and dishonest. Uh, I'll talk about the blocking a little bit because
Yeah. Yeah.
the receiving is sick and all that. The blocking is good. I think one of the better. I think like it's probably second behind Joly in the class for me, where he like is trusted to be the like read point for the running back on outside zone is they'll set Sadiq out and have him block at the end, and he most of the time holds his own. I think he's worse when he's doing that, but I mean he's a tight end, not a tackle, and he's a 240-pound tight end, not a 260-pound tight end. So like that's kind of what's going to be expected, and then you like run him on a seam, and it's like, no, okay, I don't really care that you lost that block 2 plays ago. But that was my only like real criticism is like if you're gonna have him as an inline tight end and you're gonna be running outside zone his way, playing like against NFL DNs that are probably the best athletes like in the world, it's gonna be a tall task for him. But outside of that, I mean, a blast to watch.
Yeah, I don't think he was as impressive as a blocker this year than I remember from last year. And I think like inevitably like his size will come up in these sorts of conversations, just because this is like he's 6'3". This is another player, and I don't know what his arms are going to measure at, but like I got to assume there's a little bit of a lack of length here compared to what we're kind of looking for with these 6'5" sorts of tight ends. That being said, like the power that he can generate on blocks is way above his size. Like as a smaller tight end, he is capable of legitimately driving bigger players back. Like he will push the sled in Indy and make it look easy. Like his, I mean, the quads are massive. Like he's built in the lower half, and it definitely helps him in those situations. I will say, I did notice a little bit of like, is he holding his blocks well all the time? Not necessarily. I do think there's instances where, like, if he's coming across the formation, he will miss those in some cases. So, like, there's a little bit of like we're still developing there, and especially considering what I saw last year, where it was like, oh my god, like this guy is crazy good already, and for an undersized guy. But I did think that took a step back a little bit this year. And then the one thing I'll say is his hands makes those leaping crazy circus catches, but he also has a pretty high drop rate in general, all things considered. He's over 10% this year, 6 drops, 10.5%. That is way higher than all of these guys, and it's way higher than the 7% threshold that, is kind of like the industry standard. So, just something to watch with him because, I'm not like necessarily doubting his hands, but it's something that is definitely a yellow to red flag with him right now.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And you can counterpoint by saying like some of the best wide receivers in the league have a high drop rate, but you got to be one of the best wide receivers in the league for it not to matter.
And there it is.
There it is.
That was a lot of tight ends, different lists. We covered a lot of names.
I like it.
It's a good thing. We have flag plants. We have Terrance Carter, Eli Raridon. That feels good. Any other names?
Klare and Endries are my two honorable mentions.
Yeah, I think we kind of covered it with, going over each other's lists. Joly was 6. I guess I'll just, because I watched him and because I've probably talked a little bit of shit about him already on this episode, but Tanner Koziol, he's a fun player in the sense that I want him to be better than he is. He was you watch this 6'7" guy that has like 40 contested catch opportunities last year, and you're like, I'm going to do a dynasty with Houston in college football 26 so I can just throw it up to this guy every play. And that's a blast. And I will say that I thought his film was better this year than it was at Ball State last year. That being said, some of the balance issues with him, the blocking issues with him, with his size and man coverage is a real tough test for him. Let's just say that. But a player that I'm going to make a claim here, you will see catch a ridiculous red zone fade touchdown in the next 2 years in the NFL.
Yeah.
If nothing else.
Oh, Koziol. I remember him.
Yeah.
Oh.
But that's it. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we covered like almost 10 names there, I think. So
love it.
All right. So that is all of our offensive positions for summer. Or no, it's not summer. God, I wish it was.
Oh, that'd be nice. It's freezing.
It's terrible.
The wind was cutting through my sweatshirt today.
Yep. Up here in Wisconsin, I think we had -degree wind chills today. That was fun.
I went out to left the house just to get the mail, and I was like, good God.
Yep. I want to die.
Yeah, I feel bad for my dog.
But the good news for us, Rankings 2.0 does not end when the offensive positions end, because this is an IDP program. They are people too. And we are going to talk about not 1, not 2, but 3 position groups next week. Linebacker, D-line, DB. We will hit all of them. We will cover the top names in the class. I think we typically do top 3s for D-line and linebacker, and then a safety shout out, which will be a fun one this year because there's one to get excited about. I guess I should say a DB shout out, but we all know we're talking about safeties right now. But I'm excited for that because we've talked a lot about this IDP class and it probably being one of the shining elements of this 2026 class. If you are in an IDP league, you are being saved a little bit because I think we have some legitimate high-end IDPs to get excited about in this one.
Yeah, I would agree. Do you have a Trinidad Chambliss take?
I don't.
Okay.
Because I haven't watched him because I didn't think he was going to be in, and now I'm like, I have to watch him.
Yeah, same. We got a comment about it on YouTube, so I figured I'd ask to see if you had one. Okay. Yes, I know I look like Seth Rogen. I'll say that also.
Were you the guy in Pineapple Express?
Yeah. No, I won a Golden Globe a couple days ago. Yeah, for the studio.
Yes. Wow, what a trajectory for Rogan.
I know, unbelievable. Like 4 Emmys in the fall and Golden Globe winner now.
He's a legend.
And then sorry to Sunbun that we talked about Eli Stowers. He asked us not to. I don't know why. I don't know if he's not a fan.
Nobody in his league would draft Stowers, I hope, and not because he hates Stowers.
I think that's probably the case. Like, hey, don't put the people on to Stowers.
Right.
And Grimy3 gives us hope that there's more than one starter in the quarterback class. Bad news. So
that thing I said about Ty Simpson last week, I think we can now expect Ty Simpson to be overdrafted this year.
Yeah, he will be a New York Jet and he will have his career ruined.
But I will get my Trinidad Chambliss thoughts in order for next week.
Yeah,
we can talk
we'll give you a take.
Yeah. All right. Well, if you enjoyed our discussion about the very good 2026 tight end class, be sure to find us on Twitter at camp_dynasty and TikTok at camp.dynasty. If you are watching us on YouTube, be sure to subscribe to the channel and like this video and leave a comment down below so that we can talk about what you said and formulate takes about Trinidad Chambliss and things like that. So do that. And then if you're on the pod feed, you can do the same thing. You can comment on Spotify and get in touch with us that way. Otherwise, just follow and like and rate, possibly review the pod if you want to do that as well, because we appreciate all of that.
Absolutely we do. 28 years later, the Bone Temple on this Thursday coming out. I don't know if you've watched those movies.
This Thursday? This is already coming out?
Yeah, they filmed them back to back. So the kid wouldn't grow out of the role.
I see.
Yeah.
I see. Interesting.
So, the Bone Temple coming up.
Okay.
The only good movie in January.
Is that because of the award? Like, is it? Do they stagger it through the year? Because of the award?
So they load them all at the end of December, so then they can be eligible for the Oscars,
right?
And then so nothing comes out in like the first 2 months of the year.
Good time to catch up on what you missed from last year.
Right. They call it Dumpuary because they dump all the shitty movies in January and February.
Love it.
Yep.
Thanks for stopping by Camp Dynasty this week. And we'll see you next week.